May it please Your Royal Highness, I'm privileged to make the following presentation in connection with the 2012 Asian Food Heritage Forum. My presentation's title is Thailand's Strategy for Innovative Growth in Agriculture and Food. Let's start with basics. After Professor Zhao's tasty and colorful presentation, I'm afraid mine will be somewhat less palatable. But be that as it may, I must deliver my presentation as expected and let you be the judge of the final outcome. What is shown on the screen is the outline of what I shall be presenting in my presentation this morning. And I will start with the significance of agriculture and food, something very fundamental and basic. Agriculture is the practice of growing crops of grains, vegetables, and fruits, and raising land and aquatic animals in the process of producing food. Food, the source of life sustenance, relates to all human beings and their spheres of activity. The Chinese expression 民以食为天 to follow the example of Professor Zhao's presentation, which is translated as the masses regard food as paramount as the heaven, reflects the essence of food's primacy within the Chinese world order. Yet in terms of relative weight, agriculture and food lags behind industry and the service sectors in the normal calculation of GDP growth of a country. Chairman Mao Zedong euphemistically described political power as what comes out of the barrel of a gun. 18th century American pamphleteer Tom Paine, the American pamphleteer, inflamed the American Revolution with the use of his pen. The mouth, or if one prefers to say the tongue, for its dual function for fiery rhetoric and taste, has caused many an agrarian and food revolt. After all, successive Chinese dynastic changes are a historical testimony. And in the developing world today, agriculture and food invariably gets caught up in political debate concerning human rights and democracy. Food power should claim a place beside people power. Thailand's challenges. Thailand is traditionally food surplus and leads the world in the export of rice, tapioca, rubber, poultry, shrimp, and processed fruits and vegetables, worth some 1.76 trillion baht last year. According to estimates, a third of the country's land area, or about 110 million ride, or 20 million hectares, is cultivated, and a third of the nation's workforce is classified as engaging in agrarian activities. Rice cultivation takes up half of the acreage, followed by field crops, 20%, rubber, 15%, and expanding steadily against rice. Fruits and tree crops, about 11%. Despite its natural and human endowment, Thailand is facing serious challenges in realizing its potential as a sustainable global agriculture and food player. These challenges are diffused and interrelated. They deal with the country's resource base, particularly land and water use, as well as other climatic and environmental factors. Others involve the production inputs and processes, namely application of crop varieties and land animal and aquatic species, effective use of fertilizer and technology, availability of labor and credit facilities, professional management, as well as trading and marketing. They further stem from the government's articulation of an actionable, comprehensive agriculture and food strategy, dealing with farmers' income, rural transformation, as well as agricultural modernization. Since its establishment in 2008, the National Food Committee is legally charged with recommending policies and strategies regarding food quality, safety, and security to the government. It serves essentially as a coordinating body for various concerned government agencies. The committee's advisory role is shaped by its bureaucratic and academic orientation, as the committee hardly has political and business representation. In the coming decade, the urgency to focus on the globalization of Thailand's agriculture and food sector will become more pronounced. In such a scenario, the country will need to have innovation, which is the process of creative interaction with and adaptation to quick and frequent change of events and circumstances. Thailand's rice challenge. Rice, particularly the Harmonizing variety, is grown in the northeastern Thailand, is the Thai champion agricultural and food product and symbol of national value and strength. Its production involves much of the country's physical resources, employment, income, not to mention politics. Although the country produces less than 10% of the world's total rice production of 400 million tons, it has maintained the world's top export spot for decades, following former Burma's forfeiture of the top rank some 40 years ago. However, rice growing, taking up 50% of 50 million rai of the country's farmland, consumes vast volumes of water and large amounts of imported chemical fertilizers, and is the main reason for farmers' indebtedness as well as the government's primary subsidy expenditures. Presently, the intensified competition with India and Vietnam in the running for white rice in the world market, together with the steady increase in the growing of alternative commercial crops, particularly rubber, has further exposed the vulnerability of Thai rice farmers, 40% of whom own less than 10 rai, or 1.3 hectare of land on average. These farmers without little formal education are perennially dependent on government subsidies, credit, and other forms of support, and often supplemental loans from informal sources. The average age of such rice farmers keeps pushing up, standing at 41 years today, as against 29 years a decade ago. At the same time, rubber growing, traditionally confined to southern Thailand, has spread to the rice growing areas in the north and the northeast, occupying some 15% of agricultural land. In addition, few crops such as maize, which is the primary animal feed ingredient, has been planted in 20% of the agricultural land, as well as in encroached forest reserves, threatening biodiversity, water resources, and forest land. And today, according to estimates, there are about 100 million rai of forest land left. And this is down from 170 million rai some 50 years ago. Meanwhile, vast tracts of previously high-yielding agricultural land around metropolitan Bangkok, Thailand's primate city, have been turned into commercial and business centers, housing estates, and golf courses. Thailand's devastating great floods of 2011, I called it Thailand's 911, have been seen as an omen, a danger sign of a massive disruption in the country's agriculture and food diversity and food security. Here I would like to, let's say, pause for a moment, because I'm reading from my text and maybe you're trying to digest what I'm, been saying so far. I still have maybe 10 more pages to go, so you have to bear with me. But I thought I would entertain you a little bit in the tradition of Professor Zhao by showing you the 3 following pictures, which my assistants, help, let's say, draw. This first picture, I was inspired, first of all, by the Chinese proverb saying, 釜中有鱼, or 釜中之鱼, which means fish in the cauldron. In the Chinese meaning, if you are fish in the cauldron, that means you are dead. You are about to be cooked. Okay? I'd like to present my version of it. I would like to present this as they say, the state of Thai agriculture at the moment. Fish swimming in the cauldron but looking very happy in the หม้อดินของเรานะครับหม้อดิน but I cannot my colleagues told me that to draw a หม้อดินwould probably not he would not be able to show the fish, so we substituted the หม้อดิน with a glass bowl, but it's supposed to represent หม้อดิน. 2 happy fish are swimming in the water, oblivious to outside elements. This is what Thailand is today in agriculture. Okay, next please. This is what is about to happen. Now เรามีเตาอั้งโล่อยู่ข้างล่างหม้อดินด้วย and the เตาอั้งโล่ means what is happening around us, and the fish of course have been oblivious to what is happening now, but after 911 this is what's happening. The เตาอั้งโล่, and the drawing may not be so good, but I hope it gives you some understanding of what I'm trying to say up to now. So this is the state maybe we are in at the moment. Next, and if we are not careful, we end up on the top of the table as a dead fish. But it looks very palatable anyway. Someone else's food. But anyway, so much for the entertainment for now. I will now proceed with number 4, the R&D challenge for Thai agriculture and food. The first Green Revolution some 40 years ago was a boon for Thailand's agricultural development and enabled the country to feed the world. Notable achievements in biotechnology, particularly in the research and development of genetics of plants, rice and maize, and livestock, poultry and swine, together with the introduction of modern plants, equipment and management, led to major investments in agribusiness. Today, in the wake of the second Green Revolution, Thailand is lagging behind in research and development, which is deemed primarily as the domain of government agencies and academic institutions. The meager sum in the national budget annually allocated for R&D is one indicator. Advanced countries spend 3 to 5% on R&D, with the Netherlands further setting aside 5% of their farmland explicitly for the purpose. The United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, or FAO, recommends that developing countries maintain at least 1% of their GDP for R&D. The percentage of the application of technological research to actual agricultural production is another. So R&D, how to make R&D implementable, this is also another issue that we are facing. Furthermore, the rate of digestion of technology remains proportionally low for every baht of technology imported. The number of doctorates among university teaching staff hardly reflects the actual penetration of research conducted at various levels of the agricultural production. R&D is part of investment in modern agriculture and food, which also includes such areas as advanced genetic engineering, post-harvest management, logistics and distribution. Modern agriculture is about enhanced product value, productivity and competitiveness. A challenging question is how to more effectively leverage knowledge and information to farmers who are end users, to help them decide what, when, and how in the production process. There exists a good network of agricultural centers in Thailand. However, their services are not efficiently exploited. In the United States, private crop consultants provide invaluable information and advice to farmers who usually assume most of the investment risks. Do one's best and do it well. Recently, the president of Thailand's leading agricultural college, Chareon University, publicly lamented that agriculture was the least popular subject chosen in university annual entrance examination. Such a reality is hardly encouraging, as the country's agriculture and food becomes increasingly knowledge-based. It adds to the woe in maintaining adequate qualified professional labor on the farms and at production facilities. The growing shortage of labor in agricultural production and the inadequate land sustenance raises the question of whether the solution lies in leaving farming to those with higher skills and productivity and consolidating farms to suitable scale in order to profitably invest in modern agricultural production. In other words, not everyone should be doing the farming, only qualified farmers should be doing the farming. This phenomenon is prevalent in northeastern Thailand, where farms do not have the economy of scale. We're talking about the size of the land. As in better conditioned central plains, the lack of adequate investment in innovation keeps Thai products from further opportunity in investment. In China, while 50% of the farmers plant their own crops, more than 20% entrust farming to others, while they seek other gainful employment elsewhere. In Thailand, those farming their own land maintain a higher percentage, about 75%. Nevertheless, such a proposition often leads to charges of exploitation by rent-seeking commercial enterprises. Under the shadows of the continuing global economic uncertainties and falling exports and GDP growth, the current severe droughts affecting the grain belts of the United States, all these factors or happenings invoke the specter of the 2008-2009 global security scare, marked by skyrocketing prices, food prices. Thailand's rice production and price are not under the nature-induced pressure as America's current maize and soybean situation. Though the rice price could be subjected to another kind of artificially created policy-induced pressure, particularly due to political consideration. Nevertheless, the challenge for Thailand in the coming years is scaling the value chain of global competitiveness. In this respect, one is reminded of the traditional Chinese trading strategy, which says that 人有我有，人无我有, which means others have what to sell, I also have what others have to sell. But others don't have what to sell, I have what other people don't have to sell. In other words, Thailand must position itself so that we'll be able to compete, we'll be able to outperform our rivals, our competitors, in producing only the best which others cannot produce. In the case of Thailand's global rice competition, it would seem logical to produce what is best and what others cannot produce, and produce what is the best that others produce. The China experience, if I may go back to China for the moment. China, which has a great deal more at stake in food security. Government has drawn a baseline for maintaining the amount of national agricultural land at 1.8 billion mu, or about 120 million hectares, as a food security measure. That this has been the case for the last decade or so, with an impressive record of 8 straight years of grain yield growth. The Chinese government is increasing efforts for employing technology and developing thinking and actionable strategy to try to comprehensively redress the unfavorable and deficient conditions facing China's agriculture and food situation. Namely, that there are too many people with too little land. There's also mislocation of resources like water, cultivable acreage, and labor. The central government's first directive for year 2012 of the Chinese government, that is, has called for the use of modern methods and management to vitalize agriculture, to raise productivity, engage greater professionalism, mechanization, and organization. Specifically, the directive has advocated more use of information technology, or IT, new field irrigation techniques to conserve water, improved gene and seed selection, transplantation, pest control management, soil improvement, integrated post-harvest handling, and so forth. The government is conscious, the Chinese government that is conscious that not all farmers are suited to remain in agricultural production, that government spending alone is only fractional to the total financial inputs required by the farming sector. For instance, through the so-called Singnongchun, or New Village program, some 100 million RMB, 100 billion RMB, has been pumped into the farmers, into the countryside to raise the farmers' income, to improve the village infrastructure, and to modernize agriculture, which incidentally represents a mere 13% of the financial requirement. In other words, the 100 billion RMB that the government puts into the countryside for the purpose of raising farmers' income, improve farming and all that, represents only 13% of the total financial burden or investment required in the farming sector. So you can see that there's still a yawning gap in the raising of finance in the agricultural sector. And I would imagine that in Thailand you would have a similar situation where government subsidies and whatnot will only represent less than 20% of the total financing required in the farming sector. A major issue for the government to tackle is how to creatively bring the corporate sector's role, to bring in the corporate sector's role and capability in finance. In other words, to try to get the private sector, companies, corporate entities, to come in and help, let's say, fill up the gap. Not only that, not only the financial gap, but also to help with management and marketing, which is very important for any farming enterprise to succeed. So investment, management, marketing, these are all very essential elements to make a successful agricultural undertaking. So the government of China has a policy called the Sun Nong strategy to enhance the farmers' income, physical develop the countryside and modernize agriculture. So this Sannong program and the private sector participation are currently two very important parts of the Chinese government's agricultural strategy. So in number 7, I'm going to give you an example of what the government of China is doing in terms of bringing in the private sector to take part in the development of the countryside, and also the program called Sannong. And here I'm referring to a case or a project that involves my company, CP, which is one of the first projects, a pioneering project, you can say, to illustrate what the government is trying to do to bring in the private sector. So on this crucial issue of forming the synergy with the corporate sector under the Sannong program, one can refer to this recent case of a multi-million RMB state-of-the-art poultry commercial poultry operation at a place called Pinggu, outside of Beijing, which is now open. And the investment of this state-of-the-art facility is jointly made by the farmers through the cooperative, the government, the private sector, meaning the bank, a commercial bank, and also my company. So there are four sides. It's a four-sided kind of a cooperative project. It demonstrates the commitment of the Chinese government to reform the rural sector, particularly its readiness to experiment with the innovative approach in involving business enterprises to achieve the goal of rural wealth creation and modern transformation in agriculture and food. With your indulgence, I will spend 1 minute on this to give you some details of this project so that you have some initial understanding anyway of how the public-private participation scheme is now working in China. This is called the Pinggu Egg Project. It's supposed to raise 300 million layer chicken, that means chicken that lay eggs, producing about 60,000 tons of eggs a year, which can supply 12% of the need of the egg market of Beijing and Tianjin. So this is a state-of-the-art, one-of-a-kind egg operation in the world. This is actually the second, the largest one is in the United States. This is the second largest and one of the most modern, requiring an investment of 1.1 billion RMB. So it gives you this is an external view. Okay, so I think you have this in the handout already. So I'm not going to read, everything here. Suffice to say that this is going to be the showcase for modern Chinese agriculture in livestock, at least in livestock, involving farmers. For the first time, involving farmers who are the investors. They are the investors, they are the owners of this project. But the private sector and the government make it so that they are able to secure necessary commercial loans to launch the project, and also to run the project, and also to sell the products of the project. I hope to be able to show as many this project to you, when you have a chance to come to Beijing. It's already in operation as of May of this year. And it's going to be one of the showcases, as I mentioned, of public-private participation by government and a corporate entity like CP. So, all the details. If you're interested, please contact me, and when you go to Beijing next time, we'll be glad to show you. It's only 45 minutes outside of the city center. Please. And okay, I don't think I have very much time left, so I'm going to go to number 8. Food is the business of agriculture and food, significant growth. Here, I think that I leave this to the last because I think it is something really that is a no-brainer because the food sector is a growth sector for the next 10 years, and it's widely recognized. And I think Thailand, through its Kitchen of the World campaign, already recognizes this and is trying to do its best to take advantage of this growth business. But I think that before we can do that, we need to have a change of attitude towards farming and towards farmers. That farming which produces food is not the sector or the farmer that produces the food. They are not supposed to be looked at or regarded in the traditional way that agriculture is backward, agriculture is, it's about poverty. Farmers want to leave the farming sector because there's no future in farming and all that. But if you look at that in terms of food security, food requirement, and particularly after hearing from Professor Zhao, food has been around for thousands of years and is a growth business anytime. So with all this, there should be more investment in innovating the food and agricultural sector. That's the argument. So I think that it's a no-brainer, but it's how to make it happen. And Thailand is well positioned to make this happen if there is a will and if there is a right strategy for that. So first, we need to have a more positive attitude towards agriculture as driving the food business. And even more importantly, the commitment of resources to rural transformation, both in terms of the place, that is the countryside, and the people, the farmers. Thailand has the natural and human resource endowment to drive these dynamics, to create wealth and prosperity through global competitiveness, strengthen peace through international trade and commerce, lessen the rural-urban dichotomy, and enhance the well-being of the people as bona fide stakeholders. This means, however, that the Thai political leadership, if I may be permitted to make a comment on them, will need to set out a clear direction and strategy for the Thai people. Thailand is an important agriculture and food hub. With the transition of ASEAN to a community of 500 million respective consumers through further economic integration, such as the realization of the ASEAN AEC, Thailand has an unequaled opportunity to forge strong links with a rising China and India, adding another 2.5 billion customers. Notwithstanding the current economic situation, the food sector's growth is recognized as one of the major trends for the next 10 years. In fact, the size of the global food market, particularly with the rise of the non-Western economies, is predicted to grow by 1/3 in the next 3 to 4 years. Just next 2 to 4 years, the size of the food sector will grow by three times, by 1/3 of the size today. Following increases in per capita GDP and change of consumption pattern through economic and societal transformation in these emerging economies. I hope to show you, it took me 2 days to draw this schematic to show you the potential growth of the food sector and food and agricultural sector. And I think that I already distributed this chart to all of you. I cannot go through everything that is on the chart, but I hope at the center, that you see that at the center of food and agricultural innovation, you will be able to actually get into all those related businesses that are presented in the 4 sectors. So I will not belabor or burden you with the explanation, but since then it's almost time for lunch, but I would like to end with the 9th point about the future farmer. What is the future farmer going to look like? And here I followed Professor Jiao's tradition to show you something graphic. In an interview with a Chinese magazine not so long ago, the president of the Chinese Agricultural University, 中国农业大学 President Ke Bingsheng, Professor Ke was asked to conceptualize how a future modern farmer would look like in China. And his reply was, 左西服右农庄出的殿堂入的农堂, which actually means on the left, on the one hand, the farmer wears a suit, just like the one I have on. In the second instance, he's wearing a farmer's, apparel. He can walk into a hotel, he can come out of a hotel, and he can also go into the field. So in other words, the future farmer is going to be, but that is the version of Professor Ke. My version, I think if that would be the case, the future Thai farmer would also be educated, cosmopolitan, enterprising, well-off, and beholden by politicians, not to politicians, beholden by politicians. So these are the 2 pictures of the future farmer and the present and the future farmer. This is the present farmer, Thai farmer. And the next one is the future Thai farmer. I hope with the iPad, looking for data and weather data, whatever market, prices and whatnot, driving at least a รถอะไรดีครับ 4-wheel SUV, and then supposed to be watching something, but anyway, so I hope, and thinking of course not only billions and millions of baht, so, and keeping a pet on his side. So I hope the future farmer will look like this. Maybe you disagree, I don't know. Thank you very much, Your Royal Highness, for your indulgence.